routes with 20-minute headway. So here we illustrate what that radius looks like when it's generated. It goes into a lot of neighborhoods, and it allows that 5 to 6 story apartments to appear by right anywhere within that circle. What we may not have, this seems to be going slower than it usually does. But what we may not have been paying attention to is the density allowances, the number letter B on this bill, which allows 100 dwelling units per acre if you're within the quarter mile, and 80 units per acre if you're within the half mile. And most of us have no idea what that means. So here is a half mile radius that has been drawn to scale, and that yellow square is an acre. And the entire circle is 503 acres. And if you do the math, you see how much density will be allowed in that circle.
Is that not is it blurred? There we go.
Yeah.
So in this diagram, the inner circle, the red circle, that's the quarter mile radius. And the yellow or donut shape is the distance between the quarter mile and the half mile radius from the bus stop. And the inner one, the red circle, there are 126 acres in that quarter mile radius. At 100 units per acre, that's 12,600 housing units. In the yellow area, that's 377 acres. And at 80 units per acre, that's 30,160 housing units. So the total that you get in that half mile radius is 42,760 housing units. Is this blurry, Maria?
Yeah, I see a shadow here.
I don't know what happened, but hold on. Is that better? Oops.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a diagram, again, built to scale on the computer that shows the 5 and 6 story apartment houses in a community of single family and even some multifamily housing and what that means. Excuse me, this thing is just jumping on me. Maria.
Okay, so in order to win votes, Senator Wiener said that he's going to allow cities to have alternative plans to give them more local control. But what it really says here is that you must maintain at least the same total increase in zoning capacity in both units and floor area, and that you can't reduce any area more than 50%, but you can increase some areas no more than 200%. So when you look at this, you realize how impossible it's made it for cities.
This is our diagram of if you built out at the SB 79 criteria. If you reduce it, and let's say arbitrarily you want to reduce it in your single family neighborhoods, it reduces down to a 3-story apartment house. That's half of it. And you can see that we had to up it in the other part of the area so that we can maintain the same density and the same floor area ratio. So another way of looking at it, when one area goes down, another area has to go up because the total SB9 increase in density and floor area must be maintained in the area of concern.
And you can see that he prevents single family neighborhoods to ever become single family again if you're within that radius, because removing 50% density still leaves it a multifamily unit.
So as an example, this is, I think it's blurry again. This is an area in Los Angeles, and these are existing bus stops in this area that qualify for SB 79 developments. So these are half mile radiuses, and you see some overlap. But when you calculate the area, which is shown in that light gray, but that area is 5,289 acres. And to keep the math simple, at 80 units per acre, we have 423,102 housing units just in a small area of Los Angeles. And in our housing element, for the total city of Los Angeles, was required to find 255,000 units. In this one small area, you're looking at 423,000 housing units.
Now,
Wow.
all we're asking is how can you plan a city like this? You can't account for all the infrastructure you're going to need. The open space is not being called out. It doesn't protect urban tree canopy. It doesn't protect vulnerable communities against gentrification. And we know that investors are long-term thinkers. They can wait this out. As properties go for sale, people are not going to want to buy in areas that already have 6-story apartments. And this is what can, that's how they end up densifying these whole areas like we've illustrated. We feel that transit-oriented development has to be linear and not radial. And that's how we can protect our communities. We can get the density where we need it. And as Scott Wiener wants to help transit agencies who have financial difficulties, stay on the corridor. That's where we can build it. All of our housing elements have identified these corridors. So obviously, if this is not enough for Scott Wiener, it's just that he wants to get into single family neighborhoods.
Cindy.
Yes. So we need to stay united. It was the point of United Neighbors all those years ago when we started working together, and I joined Maria and Jeff and all of you in this effort. Once, as Maria said, the genie is out of the bottle. Once they get into a neighborhood, there's no way to stop it. So we have to have a voice and we have to stay together. And even if it's not affecting your area right now, and this is the word to go all across California, it will get there. So let's stay united. Let's fight this bill. Let's work on it. Thank you.
That's it, Rick.
We wanted to keep it short, Rick. We could get into the weeds, but everybody has other things to do on a Saturday.
I
On
understand.
this particular Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's, does anybody have any questions for Jeff or Maria? Tom.
Yes, thank you. Speaking as somebody who's been in the transit industry for 50 years, there is absolutely no way that transit could possibly handle that much additional traffic. And even if it could, people couldn't use it. So just to be sure, there is nothing in this particular piece of legislation about either funding for transit to increase transit capacity, given the huge shortage that we already have. And second, where the hell is all the parking going to be for the well over 50% of the people who must have a car to be able to do their daily life? Thank you very much for what you've done. That is amazing. It is graphic. It cannot be explained by anybody who thinks it's the right thing to do. Thank you again.
Thanks, Tom.
Jenny.
Thank you so much for putting this into visualization. I had seen something about the bubble diagrams before, but I think what you're doing, showing like a pie chart or the two circles, Venn diagram, I think that actually shows the not three-dimensional, but two-dimensional represent three, okay, D, because you've got the buildings of exactly the volume that is being filled up. And if you talk about, we have sick buildings, if you've heard that concept, which cause people to be ill from environmental issues, this is going to be sick cities. This is going to be people breathing fumes, things coming out of the chimneys, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, where are the trees? You can't have trees in there. I think that this is a sick housing bill. And I think that the environmental components of it, the other part that what you just really showed, I didn't realize that the zoning, down zoning part, which is, as we understand from how that works with the housing element, that once you're up zoned, you can't down zone. They can't, I didn't realize that was part of this, but I understand HCD will control these areas. This is what we need to confer, that this is a complete loss any control in California. However they put lipstick on the pig, it still is complete loss of any control. And I really think that having your types of diagrams to push out to cities and other groups, if you could make glossies of them or something. I mean, this is the only way we're going to be able to show everyone how horrific this is. I think Weiner needs to be reined in by the legislator. I just think he's gone. Where is the money coming from to push this? No other legislator in California has done this. It's sickening.
Happy
Thank you.
Whips.
Yeah, we have a logo letter that is going to have some of these illustrations on there. So if any of you are organizations that want to hop on, please contact me before we finish that letter. But we agree this is pretty egregious, and we all need to stop it.
And Maria, we all need to contact our assembly members and our local electeds.
That's how our plan is for next week. United Neighbors will be sending out letters for all our group to start sending in to our assembly. And we're going to go back to the Senate as well, because this bill can go back and probably will go back. And a lot of these senators are saying they're not going to say yes again on the bill if they haven't amended it sufficiently. And we need to let them know what sufficient means.
Maria, this is Joel Kelly. I live in Studio City. I see a couple of people have asked for copies of the recording, so let me throw that out to you because that would be helpful. Two questions. One, what can we do with local media? Who can we contact? We know from personal experience in the last couple of weeks that as much as those on the link have been following this, in the Studio City area where we live, this was shocking. Nobody had a clue that this was happening, and this was as recent as a week ago. So I'm curious whether there are some local people at KNBC or whatever we might be able to contact. Second, my wife has asked the following question in terms of the money. Have we followed the money, as the cliche goes? I'm assuming this is behind, if it's Weiner, it's behind builders, developers, and whatnot. But is there anything that we can do in terms of, I hate to use the word, but counter protests to let them know that we're not going to sit idly by and let our neighborhoods get destroyed? Thank you.
You hate to use that word.
Gee, Joel, we getting press on this, as all of you know, is not easy because they have bought into this whole process and of more housing, abundant housing. We need it. It's social issues. It's this and that. It's such a ridiculous, these bills are under the guise of social justice and affordability and getting people out of transit, out of financial difficulties. It's anything they want as long as they can get in. We know that a lot of developers, a lot of land speculators bought a lot of single family homes during the financial crisis.
Mhm.
This is perfect for them. Once we have no regulation on what they can do with the property they own, they can maximize their investment by building a lot more on each single family neighborhood, each single family lot they own and will own as they buy up these properties.
Thank you.
Hey, Maria,
Joe,
can I interject really quickly on the question of how to get the
Chris,
message out there?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, sorry. One thing we can all do that, believe it or not, is actually really effective when we do it in numbers. Almost every neighborhood in LA, and for that matter in California, has some kind of a local outlet, a local blog, a local weekly or monthly. And even though maybe only a few thousand or maybe even a few hundred people will see it, the kinds of people that read your local outlets, like Circling the News in Pacific Palisades or the West Side Current on the west side of LA, Yo Venice, things like that. I'm just rattling off some that are here in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
There are plenty up in San Francisco and the Bay Area, etc. So they are much more likely to publish you than the paper of record, who tend to be on the YIMBY side. But getting a lot of those out there, it does train the algorithm, first of all, and those stories will be promoted more and more. But more importantly, you're talking to a couple thousand, few thousand people. The kinds of people who read those outlets are really engaged. They're the kinds of people that talk to their neighbors, their family, their colleagues, etc. So I always encourage people to find, if you don't already know what it is, to find the local outlet in your community and write a quick, it can be 500 words, hit the highlights, or rather the lowlights of SB 79. And if we can get a bunch of those out there in a lot of these little local dailies, it's almost the equivalent of one big op-ed in the LA Times or the San Francisco Chronicle or the Bee or what have you. So I strongly encourage, everyone on this call who is engaged by definition, because you're spending your Saturday morning on this call, to look into that and to dash those off. We have a lot of our folks who are doing that, and it's super effective. So thank you.
Hey, Chris, while you're on, oops, I don't know what that was. Anyway, maybe a few words on the coordination efforts on SB 79, because United Neighbors, Livable California,
Catalyst.
our neighborhood voices, Catalyst, a lot of the statewide groups are coordinating to have a strategy and get people to active on SB 79. That group of organizations we meet, and Chris ONV is kind of the coordinator of that, but we meet every week on Monday on SB 79. So I would also encourage any of you. I noticed we had, because this went out to Maria's folks and to others, I sent it to California Alliance of Local Electeds. We had a lot of new registrations for this teleconference, a lot more people than we usually do. And so, but I would encourage you, wherever you can, these groups aren't in competition. Wherever you can, join multiple groups, because Livable will send out an email, Kalbans will send out an email, ONV will send out an email, and while we try to coordinate, each of the groups may have a slightly different perspective that fits you. So the more of these lists that you're on, I think the better informed you will be, and the more chance we will have collectively of defeating SB 79. Chris, any word on that? Any thoughts on that? Yeah.
No, I think you summed it up perfectly, Rick. Yeah, just we call SB 79 in some ways the gift that keeps on giving politically, because it's been a reason for all of the groups that in the past have been sort of operating independently, and to start rowing in the same direction, and to get into the same boat. And the Kalbans and Cindy have done such an amazing job of putting everything together in the presentation, as you saw. I mean, that's just one little example of what they've been doing for years. And so we sort of rallied around their leadership. And as Rick said, every group has its strength. And I mean, Livable has as much credibility as any organization in the state up in Sacramento. Mike Griffiths has an organization in Torrance called California Cities for Local Control. He's got a list of about 800 local electeds that have agreed to be on his email list and receive information from him. So that was a huge asset, and continues to be a huge asset. So it's gratifying, as big a fight as I always say. This is David versus Goliath, except in this version, David doesn't even have a slingshot. But even in the context of this fight, one good thing that is coming out of it is that all of these groups who have done so much amazing work individually, are now starting to cross-pollinate and communicate and coordinate. So, as Rick said, we encourage you to join your local group, and then as many of the statewide groups as possible, and we just keep building a bigger bear.
Can I just remind everybody to know who your assembly member and senator, know their offices, know their contacts, make a call, get familiar with them. We've been really successful in Los Angeles with assembly members of Burr and Durazo and our reps, but all across the state, if you make that call, that's personal with them. You're a voter. You represent a lot of a lot of people, everybody on this call. So just make that contact. And, you know, Maria's been so amazing, and Jeff with the letters and the click and sends. And if everybody did that across the state with our groups, no matter how big or small, just imagine the impact that will have as they go to vote.
Can I chime in for 1 second?
Yeah.
This is Mark Dutton from Tahunga. Maria, I would, if you want to contact me after the meeting, I write for City Watch LA, and I think that might be a pretty good platform to put something in there. I'm really hammered with some other stuff with the 2026 election coming up, but this is a very important issue to me, and maybe you could help give me the information I need to put an effective article together.
Sure, no problem, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Let's go back to questions. We've got quite a few hands up. David Ewing.
Hi, good morning. I'm wondering if anybody has embarked on a real organizing effort amongst all these groups. Maria and Jeff, you've done an amazing job in LA. I'm wondering if anybody is thinking in statewide terms in terms of organizing.
Well, we certainly have a lot of groups that we're connecting with. I mean, San Diego has a great group that they formed, and we are in contact with them. San Francisco is starting that. And we also have individual groups throughout the state that we have on our email list. So we just, for a year and a half, we focused on LA because we were working on the housing element to try to prevent our housing element from going into single family. So we ended up not communicating so much with our statewide people, but we're back on, and we're going to regenerate that that umbrella so we can include a lot more people. But there are communities doing that. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Elka.
Yeah, hi there. Thank you for doing this. I have a quick question. I'm down in Hermosa Beach, part of Save Hermosa. And, you know, I'd love to do a graphic like you have, but how do we determine what the qualifying bus stops are under this bill? I mean, do you put in your zip code? How does it work?
Jeff,
Okay, so what you have to do, you have to know in your area, are there dedicated bus lanes? And are there buses with 15-minute headway? I don't know in Hermosa Beach if you're part of the Metro bus system or not, but there is a way of going to their schedules and trying to find out their routes. There's a map that shows routes that go through every community. I know up in the Bay Area, there's also a map up there by their Metro system. So you just have to go there, find out what bus routes go through your neighborhood, look for 15-minute headways. That's the other way of qualifying, and dedicated bus lanes.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mark, you're up.
Yeah, just a quick one. This seems to be Wiener's, continual bite at the apple to try and get SB 50 passed. And so all of the justifications in the bill, I think, are completely, just fallacious. How hard is it to create dedicated bus lanes? Because what this does is that it creates a moving number over time. Because if you don't have a dedicated bus lane today, you could have one tomorrow just to basically supercharge all of this stuff. So unlike any other bill, it seems that this has an expansion component that makes it even more deadly. On top of that, I view this as putting in place, just like SB 7, which allows them to ignore all existing zoning and throw whatever they want at a city. So all the existing housing elements are going to get exploded in the 7th cycle. This to me is another foundational piece of legislation that will enable the complete, explosion of zoning in every city, right? And so I think this is a coordinated step-by-step process to get there. Coming up with with the last gentleman's questions, I think the visuals that you provided are absolutely spectacular. And I think each city, if there's some way that a city can actually generate those visuals for themselves, I think that's going to really drive the point home to get local support. And so is there a process that we can come up with, you know, kind of a little, you know, one sheet thing that says this is how to estimate? I mean, it's never going to be as perfect as what we saw today, but just how would a, you know, I'm in Santa Monica, the city published this little map, and I'm trying to figure out how do I figure out the area in the bubbles, right? And even if it's within 50%, you know, it would be helpful. But each city, if they could do that and just say, you know, in ballpark, how much density that this is actually doing, it's going to blow people's minds. So if there's a way to have a one sheet that says, if you want to estimate what your town is at, you need to go through these steps, you know, I think that would be really helpful.
Mark, those are good points. First of all, it's just a bucket of paint and a brush to create a dedicated busway. In LA, it's going to continuously happen, and especially with the Olympics coming up. We want good transportation. We don't want to weaponize it. As far as the diagrams per area, you know, that circle, whether it's in Santa Clara or it's in Hermosa Beach, that circle and the density in it is the same, right? That's the same everywhere, and that diagram you can use. The other thing is,
oh, that's a good point. So to the extent that any city has identified those circles, you can just basically say how much density is in that circle. So each circle is a fixed amount of density.
right.
So yeah, if you can just tell people, you know, any circle like this, if you can find any place that this circle applies to,
That's 42,000 units per circle.
There you go. There you go.
By the way, Mark, we just want to introduce that you're our fourth musketeer, because Mark helps us so much with all of these calculations. So Mark, we have our eyes on you again. Thank you.
I'm not camera ready this morning, so I would leave the cameras on. I'm interjecting again. I'm interjecting again. I'm sorry, but there's one important detail, and that is, you remember the original version of SB 79 referred to something called non-fixed guideway bus routes. And Tom Rubin, I think, can back me up on this, that basically means a bus route. Now, he's amended it several times, and now it cross-references the Public Resources Code, which is where we get the dedicated bus lane requirement. But the key is that it doesn't say the whole line has to be a dedicated line. And if you look at Measure HLA, now Streets for All, which is the big YIMBY outfit here in LA, they sponsored both Measure HLA, which voters in their infinite wisdom in the city of Los Angeles passed last March. And that requires street services anytime they work on a stretch of street longer than 880 feet, which is basically one city block. They are required to install a dedicated bus lane before they finish the work. So we're going one block at a time all around the city of Los Angeles. Now, the good news is Street Services doesn't have any money, so this is happening very, very slowly, if at all. But the law is the law. Streets for All also is one of the key sponsors of SB 79. So if you put those two pieces together, you can see what the ultimate goal is. For example, we have Route 7, the Big Blue Bus in Santa Monica. It's the longest bus route in the Big Blue Bus system. It goes from the Santa Monica Civic Center all the way out to Mid-Wilshire down by the La Brea tar pits. There's only 3 blocks of that entire 11-mile route that are dedicated. So the stretch that goes by Santa Monica City College. Under the prevailing interpretation of SB 79, because it has those 3 blocks out of 11 miles, the entire 11-mile route falls under SB 79. And Maria, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Wiener more or less confirm that to you, like verbally, as that's the working interpretation?
Well, but I think they've walked back from that. Initially, it says, yes, it's every part of the route. If there's one part that's dedicated, the whole route is involved. And then they changed it a bit, but I think when we all looked at it, the wording still allows, if the headway is 20 minutes now, it still qualifies. So he keeps it pretty ambiguous, I think, here.
Yeah. Well, I think the key is the common link with streets for all,
Yeah,
with Measure HLA, doing it one block at a time, and then going and sponsoring. And I think it's always safe to assume, as I say, we're not in court under oath. We're
right,
interpreting policy, and I think
right.
it's safe to assume the worst. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to add that.
And I might want to add, because I see Jeff from San Diego is on this call. Um, this bill, that half-mile radius, doesn't mean that it's all walkable areas. Sometimes we have freeways that cut into it, so you can't even access a bus because you have a physical barrier. And that is a point that they don't seem to even address. So anyway.
Yeah, if I could chime in on that real quick, and I think this is really important with your communities is most people don't think they're within a half mile of qualifying transit, so they don't think this is going to affect them.
Yeah.
And in San Diego, 50% of all single family parcels are within a half mile and would qualify under this bill. 90% of all commercial. And what that really means is, that's on the order of millions. We could satisfy all of California's housing need within this SB 79. So one of the things, and we actually, when we were fighting against this walking distance issue for our bonus ADU program, we found that there were places that were 3 miles walking distance because they would be across the freeway and you'd have to go up a mile and a half to cross the freeway or down a mile and a half to cross the freeway. We have a lot of canyons and other topography. So, one of the things I would try and do is get people in every legislative district and come up with these examples of where they have these absurd distances. And the best way to do it is, regardless of what's written in this bill, what San Diego is going to do, and probably what your city is going to do, is use what's called the transit priority area map, because that's a 1/2 walking distance from a major transit stops. And we can talk all we want about bus frequency and whether they're dedicated bus lanes. My understanding is the way this bill's written is you can use anything in your regional transportation plan. So even if you don't have a dedicated bus lane, you just imagine that you're going to have one by 2050, put that in your plan, and then all of a sudden everything qualifies. So
Yeah.
just assume anything on your transit priority map is going to be what's going to be implemented for this. And that's a lot of acreage. So.
If I could just remind everybody that this bill is for market rate housing only, and the incentives are identical to what you'd get if you were doing affordable housing. So why would any developer ever build affordable housing again? Because they can develop market rate where all the profits are with SB 79.
So our argument is we need to stay linear and not allow them to go radially into neighborhoods.
Well,
we need
remember,
to
it's
defeat the
very,
bill.
very easy. It's very, very easy to change a bus line. All you have to do is put in a bus stop sign. That's it.
Yeah.
And Santa Monica has been doing that, tinkering with bus lines, rerouting bus lines even to bring more of the city into potential SB 79. And even those outlying areas, there was a question in the chat from Barbara Galen, smaller communities who maybe don't even have any dedicated bus routes right now may think that they're immune. Paint is cheap. Bus stop signs are cheap. All you have to do is reroute a bus line or lay down a few blocks or 1 or 2 blocks of a dedicated line up in Chico or Shasta or Modesto or whatever the case may be, or wider areas of San Diego. So this bill is so malleable and so flexible that I think, again, the safe assumption, knowing Wiener is Wiener, is that no neighborhood is truly safe.
Could I jump in because he referenced my comment? What I was actually saying is there's a large number of the assembly members, it may be well more than half, who have either very few or no, quote, major transit stops in their entire assembly district. Somebody like Juan Carrillo, who's the chair of the local government committee, where I assume this bill will land. It is one of its committees. When I was working on a bill last year and he was trying to put amendments in that were going to hurt it, I did that research. In the entire committee, I think there was one member who had, other than an Amtrak station, which doesn't take you anywhere. So when you think about the arguments, these arguments are very compelling. But if you're facing a YIMBY cartel that's going to put up a candidate against you in your next election and accuse you of being anti-housing because you voted against SB 79, and that is what happened with AB 2097, by the way. People don't want to be painted as anti-housing. You have to look beyond the arguments that are compelling to us, those of us who live in dense areas, and these radii will apply to everyone we know, because they are being told, they're getting personal visits, they're getting pressure. You don't want to be the anti-housing person in your next election campaign. So I think there needs to be, in addition to what you're doing, there needs to be debunking of the assertions, because there's assertions that Wiener and the cartel make that are unsubstantiated. You see citations in the sponsor-written fact sheets. This study, I pulled out all Wiener's quotes. He says, well, there's an abundance of studies. We need to stop ignoring them and start going with them. And that's what SB 79 is about. Look at the studies cited in the footnotes. They don't support the assertions. They're unrelated. Nobody vets them. The policy analysts for the legislators and the committees, they repeat the assertion. The two main assertions that have not only no substantiation, they're falsely presented as backed by studies. You know, one of them is a 2023, Michael Manville, that's a new one he's using from UCLA, saying the reason transit has declined, acknowledging that it has, is that higher income people are moving into neighborhoods displacing lower income people, and that's why transit use has declined. Not mentioning.
Other people have their hands.
Not
Okay,
mentioning.
can I raise an issue here? Can we go with the order of raised hands rather than letting someone jump in and then give a 5-minute speech?
You have to, in addition to making the argument of why it hurts neighborhoods, you have to give the legislators who are not coming from neighborhoods that are impacted, like Palmdale, like
Okay.
Rio. You have to give them a reason to say no where they're not branded as anti-housing.
Thank you, Barbara. Let's move on to Diane Louise.
Greetings, everybody. I'm in the northern part of the state, in Placer County of Sacramento. We're always trying to, chase behind the bill. And so for quite a long time, actually years, I'm very active in participating with the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission here in Placer County. They know my name, let's say. I had pushed on them because we were one of the original home rule charter counties. And of course, there were only 14 in the entire state. And I've been pushing ever since Huntington Beach. Michael Gates, who just, if everybody's aware, moved to the Department of Justice under Bondi in the Civil Division, which hopefully he went into the belly of the beast. I'm hoping to work his way back toward California to fix some of this egregious RENA or HCD allocation numbers for RENA. I'm trying so hard to push to get coalition of counties, especially the and/or cities that are home rule, to challenge the state on a legal basis of, a conditional acceptance with proof of claim. They have never proved their claim that the assigned numbers, which is the whole state predicated its RENA numbers and its authority to overstep a home rule charter by just using that one little bit of language, a statewide concern. Well, in my view, it's not a statewide concern, and certainly rural areas and ranches that are being bought up acreage wise because it's cheaper land than to be in the incorporated areas, is why Wiener's been after it to pad the developers. I say, and I've been saying for years, is we need to challenge the state because everybody's left. The jobs have left. I think we're not doing proposals of an alternative, and it's going to take another constitutional convention, I guess, or a Supreme Court ruling to reinstate the reason we got home rule in the first place. It took 30 years to go to a constitutional convention to get power over our own land use. And that's what's been stripped from us just by making a statement that it's statewide concern. To me, it's a legal challenge and it's a constitutional challenge. And I don't know, I would hope that the groups could get together and fix it from the basis of where all this stuff jumps off at. And 79 is very, very concerning, especially after what I learned from California Insider's interview the other day about poor San Diego being a pilot program, basically, to call ADUs in mass. You can put 100 ADUs. And then they don't even have to have a site manager because they're not, quote, apartments. They don't fall under the same legislation there. So I think a huge wake-up call for me was in that interview. I had no idea. And that's a testing ground, right? It's going to go up and down the state. So I'm just throwing out some ideas.
One thing I'll comment on what you've said is that Chris LaGrasse here is representing our neighborhood voices, but that's I think we're all supporting our neighborhood voices, and that's the group that will potentially get if they get enough money and backing, will get an initiative put forward to essentially return local control to the cities and counties.
Rick, if I could just make one last, I loved your presentation. I would love to get your slide deck and or maybe you could make a little clip of that, email that out to us or something, that PowerPoint that they put together, because I would love to forward that to my assembly member and all of my board of supervisors and the planners so that they can see what train is about to hit them. Because they talk about 79, we're going to be out of a job. Well, yeah, you are going to, especially if they resurrect 677, everybody's out of a job.
Yeah.
So thank you all for the time.
Maria will be forwarding their presentation, and I can make it available to Livable California folks. And of course, those of you that are part of United Neighbors can get it directly from Maria also. So, Mary Eliza.
Yes, I had a quick question. I put a whole bunch of stuff in the chat about how to get to the individual chat issues again. But I basically was wondering if any of this involves something called density decontrol, or is that just something San Francisco planning decided to throw at us in San Francisco? Do you see density decontrol anywhere in any of these bills? Have you heard of it?
No.
Oh, okay.
I think the concept is common, but that specific term, I believe, is unique to San Francisco. But if you can explain it to everybody, I think it does apply. But that language, I believe, currently is unique to San Francisco.
Okay, I'm going to try to describe it. The simplest way to describe it is there's no limit as to how small the units can be. So if you have density decontrol, what we understand at the moment is you can have basically jail cell size units anywhere within that area. It has nothing to do with height or normal kind of density elements. It's just there's no limit as to how small they can be.
Thank
So
you, Mary. Shelley.
Go. Thank you. Really a quick question, kind of a fact check, because the numbers went by me a little too fast. In one of the slides, it showed a great many overlapping radii, and it gave the calculations for the total number of units. Is there discounting for the overlap?
Yes.
Or is each, okay, thank you.
Barry, you're up.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. So one comment and then 3 suggestions. It seems to me that behind the scenes, Wiener just hates single family housing and thinks that it's a white elitist thing. And so all these bills seem to be going in that direction. I can't interpret them any other way. So I have a few suggestions. One, I can show people, and I'll create it for our area, how you can create a radius in Google Maps where if you take a bus stop, you can say, give me a radius of a half mile. And I think that one slide where you can overlay it on the houses in the area will get people's attention. These slides, Jeff and Maria's slides, are perfect for those that understand LA. I was talking with them the other day and I said, I don't know what we're looking at. Where is this place called Sherman Oaks? So the only thing that is relevant is our area, the particular
I did my
people's.
question, I'm just listening.
So I can send that out if people don't know
Yes,
how to
I
do
have
it, but I think that's the one relevant slide to show people. Next, I think what would be good would be get 3 to 5 people to schedule a meeting with your assembly person, because if you have a group, there's more pressure on them to meet, and to ask them a question, show them one of the major lines like El Camino and say, draw me where SB9 will affect our area, and see if they can do it. I suspect they won't have a clue, and then come prepared with a diagram of this is the impact. Letters are great, but they're easy to dismiss. So I think if you get 3 to 5 people, they will be forced to have a meeting. Next point or last point is next door. I think we should look at assembling people that are in sort of all these next door areas. They're sort of constrained, but again, one slide on next door saying, this is what SB9 with a circle of all the homes that are included there probably will start a discussion on next door. And I'll spend some time looking at the next door process. But what we would want to do is, like in our area, there might be 20 overlapping next door neighborhoods. We want to get someone on each of them that can post. So those are my recommendations.
Thank you, Barry. Let me just add one thing to your comment about getting 4 or 5 people together and meeting with a local representative. When people do that, I think a legitimate ask is, since I agree with Barry, they won't know the impact, but then the ask is that they find out the impact by asking their planning department to do an impact study that actually shows what SB 79 will do to their city. So I think that's a good way to leverage getting the word out to the full city council and the people. Is the more that we can get planning departments to actually do it for their city, I think the better off we are in communicating the issues.
And if I could pick up on what Barry said, the half-mile radius inside your community would be very telling to your elected official. Most people have no concept of how large a half-mile radius is. So if you can, even if you just pick a point at any intersection and draw that on Google Earth, You can do a measurement on that, and then you just take a compass, print it out, use a compass, and draw it.
Thank you.
Can I just respond, Rick, to your point? Remember, the assembly people are not one city. They represent, Becker represents 20 or 30 cities, or our assemblyman 50 maybe. So I think you brought up a good point about talking to council members at the city so they can be aware. But Mark Berman in our area, he doesn't have a planning department. He's got a staff. So there's two levels there: the people that actually vote in the Assembly and the Senate, but also I think it's a great idea to go after the city so the city council members understand what's involved there.
Well, if I can jump in here, we approached our planning department to make maps to show the impacts to the whole city of LA. But they can't do it unless the city council gives them the okay to do that study. And we got a resolution in front of them, and it's not coming before the city council. So a lot of communities have this problem where there's a lot of pro-development, pro-housing, whatever. So it goes back and forth. I think Scott Wiener should have been required to produce maps of what the impacts of his bill would be. I mean, why should he put this burden on everybody else when he's suggesting a bill that is a huge amount of impact? He should have been able to generate those maps for everyone.
He takes after Trump.
Leslie.
Hey, nice to see you again, Rick. It's been a while. I am the co-chair of the Spalding Square HBOZ neighborhood organization in Los Angeles. We are shooting an anti-SB 79 video today. We made one in 2019 against SB 50. I'm so tired of this fight against, yes, this Trumpian dictator Wiener. Well, first of all, I'm happy to share the video when it's done. We need to do it very quickly with anybody who can share it. I'm in regular contact with Maria and Cindy. If anyone has any media suggestions, I'd greatly appreciate it. I'm a journalist for entertainment. I work for the LA Times, who are a waste of time in this department. I know Robert Kovacic of NBC. I'll certainly be contacting him. But if anyone has any ideas, I'll put my email in the chat. It's spaldingsquare@gmail.com, and I'll put my personal one as well. But I just have a couple of quick questions before we shoot today. And I've asked Maria and Cindy this. Ages ago, possibly pre-COVID, there were about 100,000 vacant market rate units in Los Angeles. Excuse me. And I'm just wondering if anybody might have any update on that figure. I did talk to Maria and Cindy about this. I wondered if you might know, Rick, because that's certainly worth mentioning. And that's a horrifying statistic from San Diego that was that 50% of single family neighborhoods would be affected by this, or 50% of neighborhoods. It would be so great to know if we have a figure like that for Los Angeles also. And great comment, by the way, about the bus lanes. We are technically exempt right now because we do not have a rapid bus on Fairfax. That can change any second. So I think everybody should assume that they will be affected by this. So those are my questions.
Yeah, I do not have vacancy rates. Does anybody else have any thoughts on getting vacancy rates for various cities?
Yeah, there's
The
actually, I'll put it in.
Finance has publishes vacancy rates in its report stat. So Rick, I can send you a link to the Department of Finance that has the latest vacancy rates. And it's by city. It's for every city and every county in the state.
Mark, can you send that straight to Leslie?
Yeah, just if Leslie can put her email, if she can put her email in the chat, I can do that.
Okay.
I've just done that. Thank you.
Hey, Rick, just real quick, I think it was the LA Times that did the story maybe 2 months ago. the number was around 150,000 vacancy in Los Angeles, excuse me. And they brought that number down to 110. A quick search and you may be able to find it there, just FYI.
You know what? Chris LeGras just put the link into the report.
Thank you. Brilliant.
Assad, you're up.
Yes, good morning, everybody. So I'm speaking here in my personal capacity, not related to the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council or my job with the city of LA designing the rapid buses and the dedicated buses, nor being the candidate for LA mayor. 3 points. First, I thank everybody for all the presentations and the comments. So you said all what I wanted to say, so I'll set it aside. But a clarification that come to our advantage is if we could ask for the dedicated bus lane to be amended to say dedicated busway. You see, the intention, I think, of SB 79 originally in the thought of the legislators was something like the Orange Line, where it's a dedicated busway. If you're going to use the dedicated bus lane, like some of my colleagues here you mentioned, it's dangerous because Nordhoff is going to have a dedicated bus lane soon. Ventura Boulevard already have a, sort of the undedicated, dedicated. Then you have Van Nuys is going to have the light rail in the middle and is going to have a dedicated bus lane at the same time in Van Nuys. So if we could direct the word bus way, then that would eliminate a lot of the unknown future of these items. Now, Jeff, you stress on the half a mile, and I agree with you, that's dangerous. Maybe we should ask that it get limited to something to 250 feet or 300 feet or something. Honestly, this is a bill which is good for new developing fresh cities, not something like well-established like Los Angeles.
Yeah.
The third item is couple weeks ago, we asked the Deputy Mayor, Vahid Khorshand, about the mayor's position on SB 79. And so far, we don't have a solid position. I know it's a solution for affordable housing, but you need to incorporate in there the planning component in which you do not affect homes. And I'll give you just one example and then I'll be quiet. The station that I designed on intersection of Olympic and Bundy, right after we did that, one of the developers came in and bought 50 homes and converted 50, in the process of converting 50,000 square feet homes into a 700 unit building. And Bundy, as many of you maybe know or don't know, on the average carries about 150,000 cars a day in traffic. So with the addition of these 700 units, you could imagine. So thank you.
I think our argument is we want to stay on the corridor and not radially, no matter how many feet beyond it. I think we have plenty of capacity on the corridors. That's what our housing elements have proven. And that's what I think, Assad, we need to stay with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Duffy, you're up.
Sorry, really quickly, Rick, can I just interject something?
Yes.
We have such a great group here this morning. Could everybody put your city in next to your name so we can see where everybody is from? Because I think that's really important that we understand how broad this growing coalition is. So if folks can just do the quick rename and put your city in your name, not just in the chat, but next to your name, that would be fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Duffy.
Yes, good morning to everyone. And especially I want to thank not Kavita, I keep saying that. The families are wonderful. Okay, Jeff, And thank you again. We've been together since, I want to say 2018 was the first time we got together when we were talking about analyzing all these bills that were coming down. But I want to just say also thank you to Barry Smith from Los Altos Hills, my community, which I really is a small community, but very, very critical to Silicon Valley and for all the things that we do. I want to especially also thank Ann Dewey, who wrote a optical piece for the local newspaper that was picked up by the city council, and they passed it to anti SB 79. So I want to just make sure that we're going to be able to keep that in the letters going forward when you send forward to the Congress or to the Senate or whomever gets it next. By the way, the aspirational goal becomes a wrecking ball should be our basic tenet. We recognize this as it's been a big problem in the state with everything that Wiener has done, including Newsom. So whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, we've got to basically hang in there and maintain local control. Thanks again to all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Jenny, you're up.
Thanks, Rick. This is a great discussion. I've been rolling off stuff to see if we could have any graphics people. I'm seeing if my nephew can. Anyway, I just wanted to ask, is this bill subject to CEQA? I know I've been talking about SB 330 with some people, and it's evidently CEQA does not apply to it. So we're having big problems in Cupertino. But what about, can you talk to excuse me, talk to CEQA about SB 79. Are these new buildings subject to CEQA or not? I really, somehow I lost that train of thought. And I do think that it should be subject to CEQA because if you're building in this amount of density, it's going to be causing air problems, traffic problems. Where do you have grocery stores? Where do you have gas stations, and where can you buy medicine, doctor supplies? Plus, we're all going to be paying for the torn up roads, et cetera, et cetera. So
may I interrupt?
Yes.
And I will give it to you. AB 609 was in the governor's bill. It gets rid of all EIR as long as you have something like 70 or 75% or whatever the number is of, quote, urban parcel. And so what that means for neighborhoods, since they're all urban, there will be no EIR.
What about 79 though?
Huh?
CEQA does not apply to 79.
No, and AB 609 takes out EIR for everything in urban areas. And it is in the governor's budget bill. It will be right in as soon as the budget is passed. We don't have to wait until next January. EIR is gone for the whole urban area.
That's
and
terrible.
I just can't get my hand thing up, and I really apologize for everybody. I have everything except for the ability to raise my hand, so I apologize.
Thank you for the discussion. This is a sick bill, and the other ones are sicker. Thank you.
Yay. Shane.
Thank you. Excellent discussion. I am more concerned in communicating these issues with not only our representatives, but our community that will talk to the representatives. The Bolton presentation in the form of a PowerPoint is a powerful way to make that communication. And I would like to get that along with, and I've forgotten who mentioned it, the link that would tell you how you can look at the effect in your own neighborhood. I can go to about 500 people in our neighborhood, including, of course, our council member, our assembly members, all the people that will be affected by this. But it's a complex matter. Very few people understand it. Very few of our representatives understand it. I can assure you that many have not even read it. I'm appalled. I was looking at the list of the senators that voted for it. Our Senator Weber Pearson voted for it, even though I have no question that she and her staff really didn't understand what it was about. So is it possible to get that in some format, such as a PowerPoint, that we could then use for local distribution? I think more important right now than just our representatives, formal representatives, it's the people that live in the neighborhood. And we have good communication systems to do that, to say, here, look at this. So with that, I would hope that that might be something we could receive from you all. Thank you.
Yeah, Rick, we can send you a link to the PowerPoint and a PDF of the presentation today, and then maybe you can share it with people on your email list, and Maria will have it on ours.
Great. Thank you. Will do. Michael Barnes.
Can you hear me?
You're a little
Hello?
weak. Go ahead. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I just posted 2 items to the chat. The first one is right up at the very beginning. And I followed this bill through the committee process ever since it was introduced in Senate Housing. Wiener makes this argument that building taller, because it allows more units, makes the units more affordable. But that's actually not true. And in the link I posted, there's an example from LA's TOC program, which points out that every time you add density, you increase the amount of cost per square foot. So actually building taller makes the buildings and the apartments in them more expensive. It's a pretty straightforward argument. The way to think about it is, if you build a building taller, as the architects say, don't think about adding a story on the top. Think about jacking up the whole building and adding a story on the bottom. And that's why the per square foot cost goes up as you go taller. So this idea that, height makes these structures implicitly more affordable is not correct. Also in that link, I posted some other interesting items. For example, you can read that about the concentration of big developers now in LA and other areas. 90% of the new housing in LA is built by the top 10 developers. So there's a tremendous amount of monopoly power, which adds costs. Moving along, Wiener is pitching this bill as saving BART and other public transportation agencies. It's not going to work because the timing is off, because BART and some of these other agencies are going to get, their budget's going to go critical in the next 2 or 3 years. Upzoning takes much longer than that. So the idea that somehow this bill is going to save transit is not correct. He needs to be called on that. And the last point I'll make is that in following these hearings, I can tell you in Durazo's committee hearing, there was Senator Choi, who is from Orange County, spoke up and said that one of the reasons he voted no on that bill, and that bill barely passed out of committee. So it was another close call. He said it's because he got so much correspondence from his constituents, it changed his mind and he voted no. This bill is right on the cusp. You need to get a bill out of the Senate on the floor. You need 21 yes votes. That's all it got. And implicit in that, if you look at the appropriations hearing, was a commitment to make some improvements and amendments in the assembly process. So I think the emphasis that we've heard today about, contacting your legislators is true. This bill is squeaking by at every level, and in every case, in Housing Committee and Local Government Committee, in the floor vote, one vote would have flipped it and the bill would not have passed. So let's work on see if we can't get that process. We can get that one vote in some of these assembly committees or on the assembly floor.
Yeah.
That's my pitch. Thanks.
Thank you. Kathy Knight. You're on mute, Kathy. There you go.
I finally got it. Thanks. Yeah, I didn't know how to put up my city, but Kathy Knight, Santa Monica. And I wanted to say that I keep thinking, I wish there was some way of seeing the connection between Scott Wiener and all these big developers in California that are going to want to that are just taking over. I mean, Santa Monica plus a lot of other places, they want to take over and build, mostly expensive housing. And I keep thinking, is there a connection between Scott and these developers? And does he receive any money from them, for doing this or anything else that he gets? Is there some way of, I didn't know if there was some way of finding out or tracking it, or, if there's some people that know how to do that. I don't know. But I just keep thinking there must be a connection there. That he's money or something that he's getting for what he's doing. Anyway, that's my thought.
Kathy, I just put an expose from Housing is a Human Right. That's the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, 501c3. And it's all about where the YIMBYs get their money. It mentions Wiener specifically. And I know I mean, if you want to do the grunt work, I can put it in the chat. The Secretary of State maintains a data, like obviously all political donations are reported, and you can go in and look up Scott Wiener on that database and see all the money he gets from real estate PACs, from developers, from law firms that work for developers. He by far and away has received more money from the real estate industry than any other lawmaker, and it's really not even close. And if I can find that other article, I will. But I did put in the chat the Housing is a Human Right expose about Wiener, and that's a really good place to start.
And we should get that word out, that information out, so people know it. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Shaida.
Jada, thanks, Rick. Hi, Maria, Jeff, and Cindy. Your presentations have always been amazing, but today you raised the bar even higher. Thank you for your work. I love working with you guys. This comment is a little too late in the chat. I mean, the discussion. We were talking about bus lanes, and maybe Assad could speak to this. Because of the Olympics, LA is going to get many more bus lanes than ever before because it's been built into the Olympics layout of developing the city to have Olympics, FIFA, Super Bowl, all that kind of stuff. So what the bus lanes are right now, they're going to be supercharged because of all those events. And whatever city you live in, if you ever have any special event of any sort going on, you better believe that the bus lanes are going to be implemented even more than ever before. So just a little quick comment, and just leaving it at that. Thank you.
You're absolutely right, Shada. Absolutely. We've been talking about that a lot too. The Olympics are going to make an awful lot of priority bus lanes occur.
Yes.
Tracy, you're up.
Thanks, Rick. I put this in the chat, but I want to highlight the idea of an exception for cities that pass compliant housing elements. This takes all the emotion out of the issue, and it's eminently fair. And I encourage everybody on the call to push this idea to anybody with a platform, because not everybody cares about bus stops like we do in LA, but everybody should care about local control.
Yeah. Yeah, Tracy, that is exactly why we had that resolution that is now in front of our city council.
Yeah.
We worked with our council members to do that because we thought it was a very general way to try and rein this bill in.
Yeah, but it's not going anywhere. Tracy's office just told us there's no movement because most of the city council is against their build baby build. So that's why I think we need to pick it up and start pushing it outside of just a request from LA.
yeah, yeah, we're going to start pushing on that again. Letters to the mayor and everybody else.
Thanks, Maria.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy.
Barry, you're up.
I think he's not there right now.
Okay, let's
Here he comes.
Oh,
Here he
there
comes.
he is.
I don't know if it counts to try to throw in a load of laundry during these, hoping your earphones will. I have a suggestion, and this is for Rick, but the whole group. These are fantastic. The chats, there's so much information in the chats, but I must say, if I was to draw a curve, it would look something like this, that, you know, an hour from now, I will have forgot 80% of the great comments that people made. Tomorrow, I'll forget even more. So my proposal is for Rick to send out an email to those who would like to opt in to a, you know, group discussion, so all these great comments can continue between meetings. I don't know if others would like that or not. Maybe it's overkill, but there's been a lot of great suggestions, and I think the chat gets lost and stuff like that. So if that makes sense to others, for me, it would be fantastic. And that can start many dialogues with people that are saying, you know, having an observation. So if you like the idea, you can clap. If you don't like the idea,
we always had that. I don't know what happened to it.
So Rick, maybe if you could just send out an email for, you know, let people opt in who would like to continue the discussion, so, you know, that we can keep this going rather than have a week or 2 week intervals.
Okay, will do. Sabrina, you're up.
Well, hi, I just wanted to ask if the Livable California website could have the, somebody had brought up the idea, or maybe it's already happening, that there's a way to draw the circumference of the half mile that would be required under SB 79 to apply it to your own city or neighborhood. And I'm wondering if we could get that up on the Livable California website, if it's not already there. Reason being is, one, I think it would be really helpful just for people that are members of this organization, but also I could then use it to drive my, you know, people that I work with and also my neighbors and such to the Livable California website to then also become members and so on and so forth. So I was wondering if that could be done.
I believe it can. Maria, would that be what's in your presentation, or is that something separate?
Yeah, Jeff, I think we could figure what we could send, right? That they could use as a template.
I think Barry had some kind of an idea for that.
I'm willing to take the lead on it and send it, I guess, to Rick, and I'll send it to Maria and Jeff for them to validate it. But I've done this before for different things where there's a way, and I haven't done it for a while, but I think in Google Maps where you can specify a half mile and a quarter mile, and you just put the center point. And so to Jeff and Maria's point, I don't know that you really have to worry that much about every individual bus stop. Just in our area, just choose a few places around El Camino, and people will get the idea very quickly of how extensive SB 79 is. So if it makes sense, Rick, Maria, and Jeff, all try to work on that later today and get it to you so you can send it out to people. Because I think you got to show it locally, or people, you know, who knows where Sherman Oaks is. I'm still trying to figure out where that place is.
Oh, come on, Barry.
Barry, please do that, because my process is putting everything to scale and putting it into the computer and doing it that way. I'm too much of a computer mathematic nerd, so
Yeah. Okay.
I
So
can't simplify.
Thanks, Barry. That'd be great.
I'll do it. I'll send it to Rick and both Maria and Jeff, and then Rick, you can distribute it to people.
Super. Jeff Huerta.
Hi, Jeff Uter from San Diego. I have a question about the history of this bill and the amendments. I thought one of the revisions actually had an affordable housing discussion in it. Is that true? Because the last version I looked at, it seems like they took that out. Do you know that, Maria?
Well, you get density bonus, obviously, if you add affordable units, and they have that 10% of very low, the stuff they usually do, but that comes with density bonus. So you just keep adding more height and density to the project if you add affordable. But otherwise, it is not called out that you have to do affordable.
Got it. Because I just wonder if that makes it not a statewide concern. For cities like San Diego that are actually overproducing above market rate housing. And I think there was an earlier comment that, should we be saying, not only does it need to be walking distance, but a quarter mile? When you actually do studies, and Sandag did its review, people don't even walk a half mile to local bus service. A quarter mile is it. So the quarter mile should be the maximum extent to this, if not just on the transit corridor. It should be walking distance, but should we be advocating to amend this bill or just get rid of it, right? It's a terrible idea. It reproduces, frankly, most of what San Diego's already trying to do, and it's going to create a huge set of lawsuits over, does complete communities apply? Does inclusionary housing apply? What's actually in San Diego? We could sue on half of our transit stops that would be qualified. This is not really the cupcake that they want. But the third thing is, should we be telling our assembly members this shouldn't be allowed in single family zoning, period? It should only apply to areas that are zoned for multifamily, which fixes a lot of the distance, transit, accessibility, and so on. So, in our white paper, we argued for all the things that I talked about, but it just seems, and again, our experience in San Diego is all of your housing under these transit-oriented development bills goes as far away from transit as the statute allows, right? We have a 1 mile walking distance for our sustainable development area. All of our projects for bonus ADUs go 1 mile away from transit. And so to get transit-oriented development, it really needs to be concentrated. And the further out you spread it, the worse it gets. So
Totally.
Okay, Jeff, it's just a bad bill. We should just kill it by arguing the fact that communities that have a certified housing element should be exempt from this, because there's so many things that, as Maria and I have discussed this, and with Cindy as well, there's so many loopholes in how this bill is written. So many things are not defined that a clever land use consultant, land use attorney, clever architect can build almost anything they want.
Yep. So just to summarize, though, kill the bill, but also point out that it's not transit oriented and it's got all these other defects.
Right. Jeff, I think I'm going to be sending you our position paper that we're going to put all the logos on, and it states, if you have a compliant housing element, you've gone through the whole ringer on this thing. You've answered all the questions, all the affordability levels. Why should you have to comply to something else? You have to stay on the corridor, we think, because even duplexes are multifamily. They get wiped out in areas. We have areas that are duplexes. They're low density, and they would just be killed by this. So we think it has to stay on the corridor. That's where they can build. That's where they can add density bonus for affordability. Yeah, that's what we're going to try and push, I think.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you. Libby, you're up.
Yeah, I was just going to ask one quick thing, but I need to
I feel like I need to comment on what Jeff was just talking about. And a lot of people on this call have been following things for many, many years. And we know, first of all, Scott Wiener is not to be trusted at all in anything he does or says. There is a thing in the legislature, a cute little cheating thing where, he could make all these amendments and stuff, and then the night before, literally the night before it's to be voted on the floor, for example, he can change it all back. He can put all the bad things back in there. There's no trust in Scott Wiener. There's no trust in a lot of what the legislature is doing. And that is one thing. The reason I think that we have targeted SB 79, not just because it's the most egregious bill of many egregious bills this session, but also it has come the closest to being defeated. I mean, it only passed by one vote in both the housing and local government. Appropriations was a little different, but and it only really passed on the floor of the Senate by one vote. So that's why I hope that other people can, support me on this. That's why we're targeting SB 79 as a whole thing. I think most of us know that this whole housing crisis, they put the magic words of statewide concern in there, and voila, everybody in the legislature is supporting it with no regard to any other impacts to cities or whatever. And we've got, anyway, I won't get into that. I wanted to say thank you so much to Maria and to Jeff and to Cynthia, who I am just meeting this morning, for everything that you do and have done. And I hope that I get a link to that sent to me. And Rick, I know that I'm not the only one that has put this in chat. I am desperate. How the heck can we save chat now? The function is gone. I know that, I put it in early.
Libby, I have no idea. If somebody on the call knows how to save the chat,
There's so much good information, and now, I'm like, where the heck is the save chat thing? And
There are a lot of people who are pissed at Zoom right now because they recently, quote unquote, updated their chat functionality.
Yeah, they really messed up.
There's a lot of we are not alone. There are a lot of pissed off people out there right now.
Rick, if possible, could you just keep us on the line long enough for me to find out, and I'll let you know before you close it out.
I gotta go. There's a bunch of us that gotta go. I mean,
okay. So suggestion, Rick, keep it
an
up.
Important day today.
Rick, if you keep this up, I will do a screen scroll capture of all the chat and send it to you that you can forward to those on this meeting. But I just need you to keep the meeting active, because once you close it, I can't get to it anymore.
Well, Rick will get the save chat because he's the moderator. He automatically gets that. The rest of us won't. So as long as Rick can distribute it to everybody once he gets it, then we're set.
Okay, Rick, I'm kind of calling on you again, but no King's Day today, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Like I said, Rick, leave it up for a minute and I'll do some research for you, okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
Tony, you're up.
Thanks to everybody.
I also had my hand up on the chat because it truly is a disaster. If it's from a Zoom update, the thing is that the chat setting has to be determined in your meeting defaults before you start the meeting. You can't put it back after the meeting is started. So there's no way that you can now remove that. So we're only talking about the future, but it's essential to go into your meeting settings and make certain that the chat can be able to be saved. But one other thought, and this is not going to help us actually make any points this year, but because of the home rule cities issue and them always using the matter of statewide concern mantra to get over that, I think it's useful in all of the formal communications that we have to somewhere just assert one line that this is not a matter of statewide concern, in quotations. This it affects different parts of the state differently. Just say that. So that if we keep saying this is not a matter of statewide concern, it affects different areas differently, and say it over and over and over again, they'll get in their mind that we know that they're using that in order to get the power that, in my mind, they don't actually have. Thanks.
But
That's
the
great.
wording is in the bills.
Back on what he said real quick, because I did bring that up, but every chance I get in the open comments for items not on the agenda at these meetings, I bring that stuff up all the time. I drive them bats with it, but it's too bad because it's true. And even and I will just say quick, the auditor for California determined that it was an egregious number being assigned throughout RENA 6. And 2019 was the first time that statewide concern was used by the cabal to override our jurisdictional right, constitutionally protected rights. So thank you for bringing it up that way. I really appreciate it.
Okay, Barry.
Thank you, Rick.
I'm sorry.
This
No.
Barry.
No, go ahead. Oh, got it.
No problem, Barry. In Silicon Valley, as you can see, we look alike, but no confusion. I just wanted to ask both Maria and Jeffrey, have you guys sent your presentation to both Aisha Wahab, the chair of the Housing Committee, and one of its members, Tim Grayson, who's also the chair of the Banking and Finance Committee?
No, but we will be sending it. We are sending letters to them. Do you want us to send the presentation to them? Is that what you're asking, Barry?
Most definitely, to both Aisha and to Tim. And just taking it a little bit further into the Banking and Finance Committee, Roger Elo, I would send it to him, and Monique Limon, excuse me, who was just, voted for next year's President Pro Tem.
Yeah.
Fiscal responsibility, those three I know will look at it and maybe balloon it out a little bit further to other individuals, but both Tim was border on the vote for Wiener's travesty, yada yada. But thank you for your time and appreciate it, and I can't wait to so that we can get it and so I can get it out to my circle as well.
Barry, I left my email on the chat. It's mpkalban@gmail, mpkalban. If you could contact me, I would appreciate it. I'd like to talk to you.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Chris, you're up.
Okay, three quick things. I will rattle them off quickly. One, I'm just going to put in the chat a link to the statewide groups that have been starting to work together on SB 79. And I know we all get plenty of email and plenty of stuff, but it would be great if you can sign up for as many, if not all of them, because they're all a wealth of information. And again, you'll start to see how we're starting to row in the same direction and really building out this coalition. So I just put that in the chat. I also wanted to raise an issue that we haven't talked about yet, and that is the inherently discriminatory nature of SB 79. How are trades workers supposed to use transit to get to their job sites? Plumbers, carpenters, painters, electricians, landscapers, domestic workers, on and on. I mean, is a plumber supposed to carry his or her equipment and materials half-mile to a bus stop, load them onto a bus, take a bus, get off the bus, transfer, get on another bus, and then walk another however many miles to their job. I mean, I'm saying it's absurd on its face. Young families with young children, you can't use transit when you have kids. I mean, because one bus goes to one school, one bus goes to another school, one bus goes to the doctor, one bus goes to the playground, et cetera, et cetera. You see what I'm saying? Disabled people, elderly people. So when you really think about it, this bill actually discriminates against everybody who's not a young, healthy, white collar worker who has the luxury of either working remotely or has the luxury of using transit. So this bill discriminates against almost everybody. So that's an important point I think that we need to start making about not just SB 79, but all of these so-called transit-oriented development or transit-oriented community bills, is that you're excluding almost everybody. And then the last point I want to make, I'm going to share a picture, because a picture, as the Kalbans presentation showed, tells 1,000 words. This is a neighborhood in South LA, Jefferson Park, and some of you have seen this picture before. And thanks to existing upzoning bills, as well as a city of LA measure called ED1, which is basically a city version of all of this. This was the first historically non-white single-family neighborhood in LA. This is actually where the modern civil rights movement began in the 1930s, when Black actors, musicians, producers, business people, etc., started moving in as white folks were moving west to Culver City, Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, etc. And thanks to all of these upzoning bills, this is not AI, this is not CGI, these are actual buildings that I just highlighted so you can see them sprouting like poisonous mushrooms. There's a single developer, one developer is responsible for all of this. They're called TripleLink, and they're a Chinese-based developer that, just because let's really make this as awful as possible, has been under DOJ investigation for racially discriminatory leasing practices. So if you look, for example, right here, down in the lower part of this picture, right here, this is the future if SB 79 passes. You've got this traditional single family home here. You've got a small apartment building. I think it was like 8 units here. And where there used to be yards and green space and sunlight, look at that. They're just surrounded. It's almost like a siege. And this picture I took with my drone almost 2 years ago. I'm actually going to go down again tomorrow and get a new picture, because there are even more. So when Scott Wiener talks about single family homes being racist and exclusionary and on into the night, Scott Wiener, who's white enough that he makes me look like Cesar Chavez, I would love for him to go down to this neighborhood and have a conversation with some of these homeowners, in many cases who have had these houses for 2 or 3 generations. It is lower income and working communities like this one, like Pacoima out in the valley, like Norwalk, that are going to get hit first and hardest by these bills. And this is the proof right here. It's already happening. And once you knock down one of these houses, it ain't coming back. It's gone forever. This neighborhood has been decimated. It's heartbreaking and infuriating. And the last point I'll make is, sorry,
Chris, what neighborhood?
this is Jefferson Park and Expo Park down in South LA, directly adjacent USC. And the last point I'll make.
Question. Can I ask you a question? I was wondering how much of this was SB 9 predicated, and is SB 9 and 10, let's say, part of the build into SB 79, because SB 9 has already had a constitutional challenge and has hit the floor. So how many of these structures, those are already grandfathered in, right, under SB 9, but SB 9's already been imploded more or less. So does 79 kind of pick that up? Because we know Wiener's a master at, when a bill dies, he just rewords it and sends it through in a different form. But
well, he's trying to rehabilitate 79 with I think it's 677 in this session.
Right.
But the short
right.
answer is that's actually one of the insidious aspects of this picture is that different properties are taken because you can see the buildings down here in the lower left look a little bit different than these buildings. So this developer has they are taking advantage of different laws for different buildings. So one of these may be an SB 79, this may be an ED1, over here may be an SB 35. So they've actually been taking advantage of, I mean, again, this is the future because it's not just one bill. And 79 essentially just sweeps this all up into one big horrifying package because all of this obviously is well within transit. And then the last point is that according to the Census Bureau, almost 85% of Californians live in single family homes or small multifamily, duplexes, fourplexes, townhouses, and small apartment buildings. And again, this neighborhood is a perfect example. You see some small apartment buildings, single family, slightly bigger. I mean, this is California. And this shows you that 85% of Californians are at risk when it comes to SB 79. So I just wanted to share that picture and those statistics as additional arguments. And again, the inherently discriminatory, whether it's able-bodied, whether it's white collar, the only people who will really benefit is a relatively small portion of the overall population. Thanks.
Hey, Chris, when you get your updated version of that, maybe share it with me so I can share with all the folks.
Yeah, I'm going to go down tomorrow.
Okay, David Ewing. You're on mute, David.
Thanks. Yeah, so I think it's really important that we attack these bills on the basis of affordability because what they do, it's not only that they don't require affordable housing, it's that they displace affordable housing. So they displace people who live in affordable housing. So it actually works against it works against providing affordable housing. And I think that's really important because I think a lot of the people in the legislature think this is, as it's presented by Wiener, it's a solution to the housing problem. No, it's not. And that San Francisco Fed working paper really, brings out the fact that it's not effective in the first place. That it doesn't that zoning does not essentially affect housing prices or the amount of housing that gets produced. It's other factors that do that. But I think that politically, it's really important to focus on the fact that it is not providing housing for foreign working people. It's displacing them and gentrifying.
Thanks, David.
And Rick, could I just bring up before we all terminate this call, which has been wonderful, and everybody's kind of like we're picking up on what David was saying. We have to really emphasize the urgency to act now, contact your representatives now. And as Barry Boyd brought up, don't forget your senators. We have to keep everybody in this. It's going to move very quickly through the assembly, so we can't waste time in contacting them. And right after it goes through the assembly, it goes back to the Senate, and we have to make sure that we're still in touch with our senators. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Can I just add something to that real quick?
Sure.
Is just that I think it's important for us to get materials into their hands early so that staff has time to actually understand our arguments, because they're getting barraged with all this information and they're sort of taking it for granted as that it's correct, that it's logical and real. So the sooner that we get stuff in, the more time they have to digest and think about.
Well, in United Neighbors, we're going to start our campaign by Tuesday morning. We're all set and ready to go, and all our groups that are part of it understand that. So we're going to be starting by Tuesday morning. So yeah, we're in a hurry.
John, you're up.
Just real quick, what David was saying about losing more affordable housing than you gain, that's precisely what the mayor of Solana Beach has been saying. It's the impact of SB 910 stuff on Solana Beach. So 100% agree.
Thanks, John. Mary.
Yes, one of the things that strikes me is in all of these bills, there's when multifamily homes are taken down to do bigger ones, particularly in these poor areas, the rooms are not as big. There's no requirement that it's replacing some place that, you know, had larger rooms. In LA, we have a lot of families that those larger rooms have multiple people in them. In my neighborhood, which is Toluca Lake, we have mom and pop apartments that have rents of almost half of what market rate is. They are occupied by people who are out of work in entertainment, and the result is they're still in their houses. So my issue with all of this is they're not building for families. They are not building for anybody who actually wants to have a family. And it is so discriminatory. That's it.
Okay, thank you. All right, it's going on noon. I don't see any more hands. Oh, let's see, Mary, yours is just still up, or is it out? Okay. I don't see any more hands, so I think we're gonna call the meeting. I thank everybody that came that hasn't come in the past, part of other groups. Be sure to go onto the Livable California website and sign up for our emails. Be sure to donate to the cause. And Kathy Knight was on here earlier. She may still be on here. I want to thank her for a generous donation that she just made. So let's keep the fight going. Thank you, Kathy. Let's keep the fight going, and we'll be in touch through email and on our website.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.